What if the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the version of you who refuses to live like it's already yours? Right now, in this very moment, something extraordinary is happening, and most people will miss it. They'll chase, they'll wish, they'll beg, but the few who understand what Neville Goddard taught, the few who dare to live from their end instead of striving toward it, will experience something radically different. Not tomorrow, not next year. Now, the gap between where you are and where you want to be closes the moment you decide to live from the end. This isn't just a poetic line, it's a law, a principle so powerful, so precise, and yet so overlooked that most will hear it and move on, unchanged. But you're not most people. You're here, and that means something. You're about to unlock one of Neville Goddard's most transformational concepts, embodying the state of your desired reality. In this video, we're not just going to talk about manifesting like it's some distant dream. No, we're going to show you what it actually means to live as if it's already yours, and how this simple mental shift has changed the lives of those who applied it, quietly, privately, powerfully. You'll discover how Neville decoded the hidden mechanics of the mind and explained that reality doesn't change when you try harder or wish louder, but when you change who you are in relation to your desire. This is not about pretending, it's about becoming. Keep watching, because what you'll learn in the next few minutes will challenge what you think you know about action, waiting, effort, and even time. Most people live stuck in the illusion of one day, but today you'll learn how to collapse that illusion, how to bring your future into the present by embodying it now. We'll explore what Neville really meant by living from the end, how to shift your identity to match your desire, the role of inner conversations in shaping your outer world, why most people sabotage their manifestations without realizing it, and the subtle but critical difference between hoping for change and embodying it. You'll also hear about a lesser-known moment in Neville's life when he used this principle not just to teach, but to survive. When World War II broke out, Neville was a civilian in Barbados. He needed to return to the US, but no ships were available. While others panicked, Neville embodied the feeling of being back in America. He imagined himself walking the streets of New York, writing letters with the US postmark, sitting in his own apartment. Days later, against every logical prediction, he was granted passage back. No explanation, no delay, just results. That wasn't luck. That wasn't coincidence. That was law. He didn't visualize. In hope, he imagined in certainty. He didn't ask over and over. He assumed once and lived as though it was already done. And this is the part they don't teach in self-help books. This is the core of Neville's work. Your world is shaped not by what you want, but by what you accept as real. Not someday now. So how do you do it? You'll learn how to sit quietly and enter the state akin to sleep. You'll learn to visualize scenes that imply your desire is already fulfilled. But most importantly, you'll understand why the feeling of that fulfilled desire, the assumption of already having it, is what creates the shift. And here's something most people miss. Once you embody the state, you don't have to hold it all day. You return to it consistently, but not desperately. You don't chase. You assume. You trust. You become. This is the secret, not a trick, not a shortcut, a change in consciousness. Neville said, "Dare to assume you are what you want to be, and you will compel the world to mirror it." That's not motivation, that's instruction. Now ask yourself, are you living from your desire or towards it? Because one brings delay, the other brings alignment. As we move deeper into this video, we'll break down how to apply this truth to your daily life, starting tonight. We'll walk you through a step-by-step practice based on Neville's original lectures. You'll learn how to shift your inner dialogue, how to rewrite your self-concept, and how to respond to life from a place of power, even if nothing has changed on the outside yet. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to step into the version of yourself who already has the health, the relationship, the success, the peace, not by force, not by fantasy, but by becoming it internally. so that life has no choice but to reflect it back. This is not hype. This is not magic. This is awareness, identity, and discipline. This is the difference between the many who wait and the few who live. So stay with us, because every second of this message is crafted to shift your perspective and set you free from the waiting game. Welcome to Ignis Mindset, where we dive deep into the powerful teachings of Neville Goddard and give you the tools to transform your inner world. If you find value in content that challenges, inspires, and empowers you to create a life by design, then make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Your future isn't ahead of you. It's already here, waiting for you to become the one who receives it. Let's begin. Before we talk about the results you're hoping to see, the money, the love, the success, the peace, you must first understand what it actually means to embody the life you desire. This isn't about dreaming. It's not about visualizing something in the distance. It's about assuming with certainty that what you seek is already yours, and then living from that truth. Neville Goddard often said that imagining creates reality, not because the act of seeing an image in your mind magically alters the world, but because the feeling you generate during that act becomes your new state of being. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are no longer an observer of your desire. You become it, you align with it, you live it. Most people wait for the world to show them proof before they believe. They wait for the job offer before they feel successful. They wait for the partner before they feel loved. They wait for the healing before they feel whole. But this waiting, Neville explained, is the very thing that keeps the desire out of reach. The law is precise. Your outer world reflects your inner state. So if you live in the mindset of "I'm still waiting," then your world must match that belief. It will keep you waiting. Embodying the life you desire is a shift in consciousness. It's not about outer action. It's not about trying harder. It's about moving internally, mentally and emotionally, into the state where your desire already exists. This movement doesn't require effort. It requires permission. You must allow yourself to feel the way you would feel if it were already done. This is what Neville meant by living from the end. He didn't say to wish for the end. He didn't say to plan for the end. He said to live from it. That means your thoughts, your reactions, your inner conversations must come from the version of you who already has what they wanted. Let's take a moment and look at it in simple terms. If you were already successful, how would you walk into a room? If you were already loved deeply, how would you speak to yourself? If you were already financially free, how would you feel when you checked your bank account? Now realize this. The version of you who has all those things is not in the future. That version of you exists right now. As a state of consciousness, you can enter. You don't have to earn your way into it. You assume it, you shift into it through feeling, repetition, and trust. Neville used the analogy of wearing a new garment. You put it on. At first it feels unfamiliar, but soon it becomes yours. You walk differently in it. You speak differently. You are no longer who you were. You are who you've become through the assumption. This is why imagination is so critical. Not to escape reality, but to reshape it. You use imagination to form the scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. But it's not the scene that matters most. It's how you feel while living it. The emotion is the creative force. When you feel that something is true, your body, your mind, your behaviors begin to reflect that truth, even before there is any outer proof. And here is where many fall short. They imagine the desire, but continue to live in fear, doubt, and lack. They say the words, but their inner state contradicts it. Neville never taught mere affirmation. He taught embodiment. You don't just say, "I am wealthy." You feel wealthy. You walk in that wealth mentally. You think from abundance. You rest in the confidence of one who no longer worries about bills or limitations. And the beauty of this principle is that you don't need anything external to begin. You don't need to rearrange your environment. You don't need others to approve. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need to choose the state and return to it often. Let's say you want to be in a loving relationship, rather than imagining a future where you will be loved. Embody the feeling of someone who already is. What do they think about when they wake up? How do they speak to others? What is their posture, their energy, their pace? Adopt it. This is not pretending. Pretending implies that you know it's not real, but assumption means it's already real in your mind. And what is assumed to be true, Neville explained, hardens into fact. You must understand this work happens in the unseen first. It's internal, it's quiet, it's not showy, but it's powerful. When you embody a state, the world must reflect it, even if it doesn't happen overnight. Your job is not to control how or when. Your only responsibility is to remain loyal to the new identity you've chosen. Now think about this. If you're embodying the life you desire, truly living from that end, then you're no longer asking if it's possible. You're no longer checking for signs. You're not comparing or doubting. You're simply being the version of yourself that already knows. That's the true shift. And it's subtle. You might still be in the same room, with the same clothes, the same circumstances, but something changes inside. You begin to respond differently. You begin to feel peace where there was anxiety. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop asking and start allowing. This is the essence of Neville's teaching. When you stop trying to get and start living as though you've already received, you no longer resist your desire. You dissolve the separation between you and it. You walk in unity with your chosen reality. And this unity is creation. Not one day, not eventually, but now. The people who understand this don't just talk about manifestation. They become it. They live quietly, but with conviction. They don't need to convince anyone because they already know. They've seen the change in their own being, and they know the outer will follow. So pause and ask yourself, what state am I living from right now? Is it the state of one who lacks or one who already has? Is it the mindset of hoping or the confidence of knowing? You don't need to do more. You need to become more aware, more deliberate in where you dwell mentally. That's what embodiment is. It's choosing every day to think, feel, and act as the version of you that already lives the life you once only imagined. And when that becomes your normal, the world will catch up. The world around you is not separate from the world within you. It responds, reflects, and reshapes itself according to the identity you hold deep in your core. Neville Goddard taught that everything you experience, your relationships, your finances, your health, is a mirror of your inner self-concept. Who you believe you are determines what you see in your external world. When you walk through life, identifying yourself as someone who always struggles, someone who is never quite chosen, someone who must work harder than others just to survive, that becomes the mold, and the world, in perfect obedience to your self-perception, responds accordingly. It gives you more reasons to struggle, more situations that validate being overlooked, and more experiences of exhaustion without reward. To manifest change, you don't need to fight circumstances. You need to reshape identity. This is the hidden root of true transformation. Identity is not a surface-level affirmation. It's a deep conviction. It's the quiet story you tell yourself when no one's around. It's what you believe you deserve, what you expect without even thinking. Neville said that you can only receive that which you are in consciousness, not what you want, not what you hope for, but what you are. And who you are is defined by your concept of self. Changing your self-concept is the foundation of living deliberately. It's choosing to no longer identify with lack, with failure, with being unworthy. It's no longer describing yourself in terms of the past. You are not your memories. You are your assumption now. This is why Neville placed so much importance on imagining from the end. Because imagining from the end is the fastest way to step into a new identity. When you see yourself as already successful, already loved, already healed, you are planting yourself in that new version of self, and the outer world adjusts to match the inner shift. Self-concept isn't built overnight. It's developed through repetition, through daily commitment to thinking from a higher place, through inner conversations that reflect the new identity you're choosing. You start asking, what would this version of me think about this situation? How would they respond? What would they allow or walk away from? You begin to move through the world with a new standard, not forced, but natural. Because when your concept of self rises, everything else must rise with it. The world cannot resist the vibration of a new identity. It bends to meet it. And here's where many misunderstand Neville's teachings. They hear live as if and think it means faking, pretending, acting out a fantasy, while knowing deep down it's not true. But that's not what this is. Living as if is not deception, it is devotion. It's a realignment. It's the quiet decision to match your emotions, your thoughts, your actions to the state you desire, as if it were already your reality. Not because you're trying to trick the world, but because you understand that the world is a reflection. You don't wait for proof, you generate the proof from within. Pretending still believes it's not real, but embodying says, this is mine now. And that belief, when consistent, changes the way you speak, move, and show up. Consider someone who wants to manifest a fulfilling career. They don't wait to feel successful until they're handed the perfect job offer. They begin by feeling successful now. They ask themselves, what does success feel like in the body? What thoughts flow naturally when you know you're contributing value? How does that version of me speak to others in meetings or respond to setback? And they live from that place. Not once, not twice, but daily. They train their identity to match the desired outcome. And as that internal alignment solidifies, opportunities begin to arise, not as miracles, but as natural reflections of the self they've assumed. The same is true in relationships. If you see yourself as unlovable, you will unconsciously sabotage connections. You'll interpret kindness as suspicious. You'll tolerate treatment that matches the belief of being unworthy. But when you shift your self-concept, when you begin to identify as someone deeply valued, respected, and cherished, you no longer cling or settle. You radiate a different energy, and the people who come into your life reflect that inner elevation. Even in health, the principle holds. The body follows the mind. If you identify as sick, fragile, or broken, healing becomes an uphill battle. But when you start to see yourself as whole, even in the presence of symptoms, you invite restoration. You align your behaviors with health. You speak from strength. And over time, the body adapts. This is why living as if is powerful, not because it forces reality, but because it gently pulls you into alignment. You stop chasing and you start being. And in that state of being, you no longer need permission. You don't need to be told that it's possible. You know it's already done. Neville spoke of the law of assumption as the path to manifestation. But the assumption must not be shallow. It must be felt. It must become your new normal. This is why you don't wait until circumstances change. You bring the new identity into every ordinary moment. Washing dishes as a wealthy person. Walking to work as someone already free. Speaking to strangers with the confidence of someone already chosen. The more you live from it, the less you doubt it. And the less you doubt, the faster it becomes fact. Living as if is the opposite of wishing. Wishing keeps the desire distant. It says, I hope one day. Living as if brings it into the now. It says, it's already mine. I am that. I feel that. I live that. You may not see immediate changes, but the shift has already begun. Every assumption plants a seed. Every repeated thought waters it. And the fruit appears not when you chase it, but when you trust the process. You're not performing. You're aligning. You're stepping out of the identity of lack and into the identity of fulfillment. And it's that internal shift, quiet, consistent, and true, that causes the world to follow. There is a simplicity to Neville Goddard's method that often escapes those looking for complicated formulas or intricate steps. But manifestation, at its core, does not require complexity. It requires clarity and conviction. Neville's method can be distilled into a few powerful steps. Imagine clearly what you want, feel the emotion of its fulfillment, and return to that state as often as possible, especially before you fall asleep. The first step, imagine clearly what you want, is not about merely seeing images in your mind. It is about creating a scene that implies the desire is already fulfilled. A single moment, a short, vivid experience that symbolizes the end result, not how it happened, not the process, but the fulfillment. This scene should be natural and believable to your imagination, something you can revisit with ease. If you desire a specific outcome, say a happy relationship, you don't imagine the entire journey leading up to it. You imagine something simple, like holding hands with your partner on a quiet evening, or hearing them say, "I'm so glad we're together." That moment, if real, implies that the desire is already yours, and it is this implication that makes the seed of manifestation potent. Once you have your scene, you move into the second step, feeling. You must not only see the scene, but feel it. Neville always emphasized the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is not wishful thinking. It is embodying the emotional tone of the end. What would it feel like if it were already done? Relief, joy, peace, excitement. Whatever emotion the fulfilled desire would bring, feel it now. This feeling becomes the bridge between imagination and experience. You carry that feeling in your heart, allowing it to soak into your consciousness, allowing it to change your inner state. You let it be real to you now without conditions, not waiting for the world to validate it, but declaring within that it already is. The third step is repetition, returning to this imaginal state daily, especially at night before sleep. The moments before sleep are sacred in Neville's teachings. As you begin to fall into unconsciousness, your mind becomes more receptive. Your guard drops. Your assumptions become more powerful. So as you drift off, you replay your imaginal scene, not with strain, not forcing anything, but gently, lovingly, allowing the scene to unfold in your mind's eye. This daily return to the state of the wish fulfilled nourishes the seed you've planted. It keeps you rooted in the assumption that it is already so. And soon, that assumption hardens into fact. Now, as you live in this imaginal state, something subtle begins to change. Your behavior, your tone, your choices, they all begin to reflect the new belief you hold. And this brings us to another core of Neville's wisdom. Your behavior reflects your belief. You don't need to force change, you flow into it. When you truly believe something is yours, your actions naturally shift. If you see yourself as successful, you carry yourself differently. You speak with confidence. You take risks that align with that identity, not because you're pretending, but because it's who you now see yourself to be. Neville explained that we never rise above the concept of ourselves. If we see ourselves as lacking, no amount of effort will override that inner belief. But if we assume abundance, assume fulfillment, assume worthiness, then our behavior begins to echo that truth without resistance. Think about how differently you move through life when you know you already have what you want. You're not desperate. You're not chasing. You're not grasping at opportunities or forcing doors open. You act from rest, from knowing. Your words become declarations, not requests. Your energy is quiet and grounded, not frantic or anxious. And this brings us to one of the most overlooked yet critical aspects of Neville's teachings: letting go of neediness or waiting. You do not live in the energy of one day. You do not hold your breath, hoping something outside will validate your desire. You live as though it has already happened. This is not denial of reality. It is the creation of a new one. When you wait, when you feel needy, you affirm the absence of what you want. And that state of lack, of waiting, of hoping, only prolongs the manifestation. The key is to mentally anchor yourself in the fulfilled version of you. Speak from it. Think from it. Make decisions from it. You let go not because you stop wanting, but because you know it's already yours. You trust the unseen shift. You trust that your inner world is already creating new circumstances. You stop looking for evidence and start being the evidence. Neville taught that faith is loyalty to the unseen reality. It is choosing to remain faithful to the invisible truth, even when the visible world has not yet caught up. You walk by inner vision, not by sight. You commit to the state of fulfillment, and you return to it, not to make something happen, but because it's now your home. The waiting mindset says, when it happens, I'll feel peace. The embodied mindset says, because I feel peace, it's happening now. That shift in perspective changes everything. You are not seeking. You are not hoping. You are living as one who has already received. And when this becomes natural, when your identity, thoughts, feelings, and actions all point to the same inner truth, the world cannot help but align. Manifestation becomes effortless, not because you manipulate circumstances, but because you've changed the source. Your inner dialogue is not a quiet whisper in the background. It is the script that life follows. Every sentence you speak within yourself writes the story of your external world. Neville Goddard emphasized this more than many realize. If you want to transform your life, you must first transform your inner conversations. The power is not in loud declarations, but in the quiet repetitions of who you believe you are. If you constantly speak to yourself as someone who is waiting, lacking, uncertain, then that version becomes your reality. But if you gently and consistently speak from the version of you who already has, already is, already lives the fulfilled life, then the world must conform. There is no need for pressure or force. Neville never taught you to strain your way into a new state. The real work is in repeating and repeating the assumption of the wish fulfilled, returning again and again to the self-concept you have chosen. When your inner talk aligns with that version, it becomes second nature. What once felt like effort now feels like truth. You might be tempted to wonder, is this enough? But that question only arises when you believe the outer world has more power than your imagination. The truth is, the outer world is a reflection. It echoes what you sustain within, so consistency is not about doing more, it's about remaining loyal. It's about coming back to your desired state even when doubts whisper, even when nothing appears to change. Think as the fulfilled version, feel as the fulfilled version, speak as the fulfilled version. You are not waiting to become, you are practicing who you already are. And what about the moments when fear creeps in? When doubt starts to cloud your mind and the world seems to contradict your inner knowing, these moments are not signs of failure. They are invitations to anchor deeper. Challenges are not blocks, they are confirmations that something is shifting. The discomfort you feel is your old self being dissolved. Neville taught that when the outer world becomes turbulent, it is not a time to react. It is a time to remember. Remember you're seen. Remember the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Return to it, not with desperation, but with calm certainty. These moments test your fidelity to the unseen, and if you hold your state, the storm will pass. Persistence is not loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, it's steady, it's you, choosing the same end over and over, regardless of what's happening around you. The world will tempt you to react, to give up your assumption for the illusion of facts. But if you can hold steady, if you can persist in the inner vision, the outer must yield. You do not force growth. You remain rooted, and growth occurs. Like a seed in the soil, your imaginal act begins its silent unfolding, the moment you plant it with faith. The world may not show you results immediately, but something beneath the surface is always working, always moving, always preparing to bloom. And this is where the true empowerment lies. You are never powerless. You are never at the mercy of chance. You are always the author, always the source. Your job is to choose the state and live from it. Live as if it's already yours. That's not a motivational quote. It's the very framework of creation. It's the blueprint. You step into that version of yourself, not in the future, not after something changes, but now. You begin where you are, with what you have. You let your inner world be the first reality. And in doing so, you awaken a version of yourself that was always waiting to be claimed. Not built, but remembered. It's not about faking. It's not about pretending. It's about becoming. When you consistently think, feel, and act from the end, you begin to live in alignment with it, so completely that it no longer feels like a dream. It feels like a fact. And when your inner conviction becomes a fact to you, the world responds with echoes that confirm it. Neville never asked you to look for signs. He asked you to become the sign, to embody the state so fully that the world has no choice but to follow. This embodiment is your true power, not because you're manipulating circumstances, but because you've chosen to live as who you truly are, beyond appearances, beyond doubt. You are not waiting for the future. You are remembering your power in the present. Every thought, every feeling, every quiet assumption is a thread in the tapestry of your life. Weave wisely, speak kindly, believe fully, and now begin. Live not from the dream of what could be, but from the certainty of what already is. See the world not as it appears, but as it will be, when you remain faithful to your state. Walk, speak, and move in the spirit of fulfillment. It is not arrogance, it is awareness. Your reality is not shaped by what you do, but by who you are, and who you are begins in imagination. The key has always been with you. Use it, assume it, be it. The moment you decide to live from the end is the moment the journey dissolves. There is no path, only presence. And in that presence, everything changes. So choose now, embody the wish fulfilled, and let the world rise to meet the new you.